Happy summer solstice. That's what I want to say. Happy summer solstice, the longest day and the longest period of light. So, being more of the light that you are and expressing that light. We will talk a little bit more about the summer solstice later on. But of course, the summer solstice is the beginning of Cancer season. So, that's what I want to talk about today. Cancer season in tarot is represented by the Chariot card. So, what do we have in common here between Cancer and the Chariot? Well, the Chariot is all about overcoming emotions through self-mastery and reconciling opposing forces. We have this black and white sphinx here representing the separation, the perceived separation, and the polarity that exists in the third dimensional realm. And they're looking in the same direction, but their bodies are facing opposite directions. But what I usually say about this card is that because of the stars on his canopy, he's actually moved on to a higher level of consciousness, and he's bringing that Christ level of consciousness, that higher level of consciousness and understanding. He's bringing it into the physical world to ease and the polarity and to reconcile opposing forces in order to find that middle road, that neutrality. So that's usually what it's about. But to get to to access this level of consciousness, of course, there's a lot of emotional mastery going on. It's also obviously a card of moving forward. Now, there is another card in the deck, the Six of Swords, which is about moving like on a human experience level. So it usually refers about moving house or job or possibly moving on from a relationship. Whereas this one is also a moving on card, but it relates more, um, it's like it relates more to the bigger picture, to like going to the high, moving on to the higher octave of consciousness, I want to say. Now, often when we access higher levels of consciousness and we have one of those aha moments or upgrades or whatever we want to call them, it does involve moving on in some way, moving on to a different project or something like that. But yeah, so there's definitely those energies around the chariot. But we know that Cancer is about emotions. It's about sensitivity emotionally. It's about heightening intuition, home, belonging, and the family. So looking at it, there is definitely an emotional overlap here, although the Chariot talks much more about overcoming emotions and moving to that higher octave. And I think that's a really important point because the Chariot is more about directing your emotions rather than allowing them to direct you. So if you are being triggered and you react from your pain body, then you are allowing your emotions to direct you. If you're reacting from your anger, from your grief, from your frustration, whatever it may be. Whereas if you can use the love that you are and tap into that and then respond from a higher perspective, then that's when we're going to be able to reconcile these opposing forces. Now, I want to tell you about something that came to me. I mean, these two sphinxes, they are looking in the same direction, but I often use this deck, the Sufi tarot deck, which is absolutely beautiful. I'll put a link in the description to buying that deck. The artwork is amazing. And of course, it's full of Sufi wisdom. And this is the Chariot card, Wali. I don't know if my pronunciation is correct there. But on this card, you can see that not only are these opposing forces facing the same direction, but look how fast they're running in the same direction. Now, he's still connected to the stars and to the higher realms, to the bigger picture, to the higher octave. And he's using his feet because he's got one foot on each horse. So the opposing forces are being drawn into that supporting role to support the consciousness of the higher realms. I saw all of this in this card, and that's when I realized that in this card, the beauty is that the opposing forces are facing the same direction. So let's bring this into the physical world. What does this mean? The way I'm looking at it, a perfect example, let's use Trump, because you've got the people that hate Trump and you've got the people that love Trump. Now, from a quantum perspective, people that love him, they are seeing within their reality a reflection of that. So they will find evidence of good things that he's done and stories that resonate with him being a goodie. And of course, those that hate Trump will do exactly the same because they're vibrating that message out, and they will also come across media and information that is evidence to him doing wrongdoings, or him not being in alignment or what have you. And so you can't argue. You cannot tell this person to think like this or this person to think like this, because the truth is we all create our own reality. And because of the frequency of our thinking, it will attract into our reality something to support that. If we believe something, the universe will give us that. We know that. We know that we create our reality through our beliefs. So if we have a belief about something to do with the world, the universe will back that up for us. That's why it's so important to believe positive things about the world. The world is a safe place. I love living and playing in the universe, and especially having positive thoughts about yourself, because we know how we manifest it. So let's take these two polarities. Now, rather than focusing on what's making them separate in a perceived state of separation, rather than focusing on that, knowing that we cannot change the way someone thinks, okay? The only thing that can change a person, the only thing that we can do, and I talk about this in my video on thoughts, your thoughts and other people's thoughts with reference to the map of consciousness. I'll put a link in the description to that as well, because you can't change somebody else's thought. But the only thing that can help them raise their frequency is, of course, love. And you are love. And by being the love that you are, sharing the love that you are, vibrating, emanating the love that you are, that can raise people's frequency. And so let's have a look then what these people have in common. What they have in common is they both want to change something on the outside of them. They both want to see a change outside of them, but we know that the change starts within. But also, they both want world peace. Who doesn't want world peace? Okay, maybe there's 1%, but the 99% want world peace, united in healthy food, a sense of belonging, a sense of security, a sense of abundance, love thy neighbor, um, living in a community that is governed by love and kindness. That's what both sides will say that, but who they're blaming for the lack of that is coming from their perceptions, their lens, their pain body, the social media, what have you. But the point is, they both want the same things. So it's about going to that next level. That's why to unite the opposing forces, we need to go to the next octave. We need to see the bigger picture. That's what it's all about. And we need to focus on creating that peace, not by changing what people think about present politics. That's not what it's about. It's about creating the new. And the point is, with this level of consciousness, you can reconcile these opposing forces by basically focusing on what everybody does want, on creating world peace. And how is world peace created? I talk about it in this book. Of course, it's creating the peace, the sense of peace within. So there's an acceptance. We need to accept that some people, I don't know which side is which now, but some people hate Trump, for example, or love Trump. Just accepting that as the way the human experience operates and works. It works in a state of polarity. So there has to be polarity. So once you understand that, you don't fight it. It's not about fighting the polarity. It's about seeing the polarity and rising above it, whether you love Marmite or hate Marmite. And actually, it's making me remember something when I was writing the book. Um, the subtitle of this book is A Simple Guide to Quantum Manifestation, Self-Mastery, and Creating World Peace. But in the beginning, I wanted to say, and creating heaven on earth. But some people kind of said to me that sounds quite religious. To me, it doesn't, but it has a religious connotation to it. Some people didn't feel comfortable with that. And I thought, well, creating the new earth, I'm happy with these phrases. And then there were some other people that they weren't in alignment with that because they had a belief that the new earth is some kind of new agey kind of, I don't know, spiritual bypassing stuff. I don't know. I don't get into all of that. But there was people that didn't resonate with those phrases. So what I did it subconsciously. I was like, let's just take it to the next level. What do people resonate with? Creating world peace. Everybody wants to create world peace. So I changed it to creating world peace. And so basically, I was doing whatever the Chariot card says, taking it to the bigger picture, taking it to what we want to create, taking it to what we came here to create. We didn't come here to wallow in the polarity. We came here to build a better world of peace. There is an interesting story about that which I've shared before, because when I um, changed the subtitle, it actually made the frequency of the book higher. Creating World Peace was at a higher frequency, and I wasn't at that frequency. So I had a very interesting upgrading journey, which I've talked about before. I won't talk about in this video, in order to get me at the frequency of the book, in order for me to be able to write it. Because everything exists in the now moment. So I knew it was already in existence in some dimension, but little old Deborah wasn't there at the time. So interesting process. But anyway, another story. But you get my point. The point is the horses and the sphinxes are going in the same direction, even though they are opposite ends of the polarity. So let's not waste our time this Cancer season in trying to change people's thoughts and their beliefs. Let's just find what beliefs we have in common and what do we want to work towards creating. Community coherence, heart coherence, sharing the love, all of these things, whatever it is that you want to do, let's rise above the third dimensional politics and rise above whatever's going on in the news. It's all there to keep us in a polarity, in a state of polarity and perceived separation. So it is about focusing on the oneness. It's about focusing on the unity. And that's exactly what he's doing here. He's bringing these together, but they don't have to change. You see, you notice how this one is still black and this one is still white, right? So you don't have to change. You can still prefer this story about Trump, and you can still prefer this story about Trump, whether it be positive or negative. It can still be your preferred thought, but you're not attached to it. Now that's an interesting point because I've got another video on that. I'll put a link in the description, how to detach from your thoughts. I've talked about it before. Whereas, having thoughts like balloons and being able to pull one in and talk about it, and this is my thought. But the secret is not to be attached to it. So you might have a thought about Trump, which is fine. We don't have to change that. But if somebody argues with you and says the opposite, do you argue back? Are you really, really hanging on to that and putting yourself into a state of contraction and frustration? Because that's not serving anybody, least of all you. And that's not going to create world peace, is it? So let go of the balloon, let go of the thought, let go of the belief. You don't have to be attached to it. You don't have to defend it to anybody else. It's not about justifying our beliefs. We don't have to justify them. We can let go of all of them. The only one we want to focus on is creating the peace inside. of us, which will create world peace, that unity consciousness. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That's why I wanted to share this one with you, because I think that's a really powerful point. But we cannot escape the fact that the chariot moves forward despite the opposing forces. So don't let them hold you back. That's definitely. Now, you might be pulled between comfort and growth, past and future, security and adventure. That might also be a case this Cancer season. So, where are you going to put your efforts? You know, our comfort zones are very often not comfortable anymore. And we do need to focus on growth, even if it doesn't feel comfortable at the moment. When we actually get round to doing whatever it is, we will feel much, much better. And of course, we do feel safe in our comfort zone, but adventure also, we can get bored. We can get stuck in a rut, can't we? And so a little bit of adventure is a good thing. And now with the Great Awakening, it's, I think, a necessary thing, definitely. The Chariot card is also about trusting and and home. So we know that Cancer is about home, loving the home, liking being at home with family, a sense of belonging, very nurturing energy. Now, the Chariot also is about home, but it looks at home as being our physical vessel. So you don't have to stay in your physical home because we're being adventurous, we're moving on, we're traveling, you know. So it's it's more about looking at our human being as our home and our temple as well, and really honoring that. So um, your consciousness is your creative force. That's what the card is really saying. Your consciousness, your level of consciousness is your creative force. And it's about bringing that level of consciousness into the physical realm. So, questions and reflections. What emotional pattern is ready to be redirected this Cancer season? And what destination is your heart moving towards you expressing? So, what is it guiding? What is your heart guiding you towards this Cancer season? Um, and what emotions do we need to overcome in order to carry it out? I think that's kind of important. So, yeah, the message for this Cancer season is to take the higher ground, go to the higher octave of love and peace, and not worry about the polarity. Let's have a quick look at the Sun card because the Sun card is actually Leo. But of course, if there was a card in the tarot deck to represent the summer solstice, I'm recording this on the 20th of June, so the summer solstice is tomorrow, but it may have already passed by the time you see this. But of course, the card that represents it the most is the sun, because the rays of the sun show spiritual guidance, and the sun card in tarot has the greatest rays, is the biggest sun. So it does show the sun, the light. Of course, the summer solstice is the longest day and the shortest night. The sunflowers show happiness. So again, this is about focusing on joy intentionally. That's what I want to say. Focusing on joy intentionally. And it's about stepping into your light. Horses, again, positive movement forward. The baby often shows rebirth. So it's showing, we were talking about growth, but when we have sudden spurts of growth, it's kind of like a rebirth, isn't it? So it is looking at choosing joy intentionally and being childlike, I want to say, and remembering that your light doesn't diminish anybody else's. And I also want to say that your happiness is not a betrayal to those that are suffering at this time. It is actually the fuel and the light that gives them hope and inspiration. So I've got a beautiful affirmation for those of you that like affirmations. It is, I made a note of it. I welcome the light of truth, celebrate my growth and rebirth, and move forward with an open heart. So this is for Cancer season, starting on the 21st of June. I am sending you so much love, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah, mwah. No. Bye for now.